Keep waiting like power, strong and bitch. Trap break fat like weed. Certain nigga ass, it's a brand new bitch. Money color got thick ass, feel a real like feet. Joe Brown, what's up? What's up? What's up? Salute with you, man. I'm going. Hey, man, I didn't even know I was I was really live. I was just messing around in the background trying to do I was really trying to just do a little test, man. I didn't even know I was live, man. Shoot, man, what you think about Manny Pacquiao talking about Ugas? Talking about how easy he think how easy opponent he think Ugas should have been and wanted a rematch and all that, man. You think you know what I'm saying, you think he talking right, or you think he probably need to sit down and give himself a little more time before he decide that he want to come back and try to run that thing back or fight anybody else? Hey, salute Nathan Kano. If I said that wrong, my mistake. Hey, how my audio coming through, y'all? Y'all hear me all right? Say, hey, Joe Brown, you saying let him come back, but is that let him come back and we'll see how it play out, or let him come back? You feel confident that he gonna be all right? Rod Edge, the champ, 2-time. Salute. No, cause to me, I mean, I never be one to tell these fighters, you know what I'm saying, that they need to hang it up, because I done seen that plenty of time where these fighters, went out there and had a bout. It didn't go, it didn't go as planned, and then everybody start telling them they need to hang it up, they need to do this, that, and the other, and then they have a revitalization and end up extending their career. Even Manny Pacquiao, there was some people calling for him to hang it up after the Marquez fight, which I thought that was premature. But a lot of times when you look at these fighters a certain way and you see them stretched out like that, it's kind of hard to stomach. Kind of like when Roy Jones Jr. got stretched against Tarver, and then came right back and got stretched against Glenn Johnson. That was tough. But even with Pacquiao, when he, when he went through fire and brimstone with Jeff Horn, a lot of people calling for him to hang it up. But he continued his career, and there he went, and he went ahead and had a decent he had a decent run since then. Hey, Nathan Kano or Kano, sorry if I'm mispronouncing it. I appreciate that compliment, man. I try to be objective, man, and I'm all about the sport of boxing. Like everybody else, I have fighters that I prefer to watch over others. Certain fighters I follow a little tougher than others, but for the most part, I'm all about the sport of boxing over these fighters. But I do understand that collectively these fighters do make up the sport of boxing, so they got to get theirs. Yeah, y'all hit that like button for me. Dang, you know what I'm saying? I ain't used to doing a live stream. Like I said, this is an accidental live stream. I actually was trying to play around with it in the background just to test my audio and stuff, and just try some different things, and messed around and went live. But it wouldn't be me if I didn't pull something like that. You know what I'm saying? I mean, I have a tendency to fumble my way through things sometimes. For Ugas rematch or Thurman will build Ugas up. Yeah. I agree with that. For Ugas, a rematch with Porter would definitely build things up for. I mean, a rematch with Pacquiao, excuse me. But also, rematch with Porter. But I don't think I even heard Porter talk about some stuff pertaining to that Ugas fight. And he don't sound optimistic about wanting to fight Ugas again. He seems to think that Ugas is even better now than he was when they fought. And most of us know that, if we're being honest, and that Ugas beat Sean Porter, and I'm not going to jump on nobody if they disagree, but that's the way I saw it. And I don't think that's a good fight for Porter, but it's a good fight for boxing. But I want Porter and Bud to fight, so I ain't gonna really talk about that much. But Thurman and Ugas, I'm all for it. But at the same time, I want to see Thurman get a, so I want to see Thurman get in the win column before he gets a title shot. You know what I'm saying? That's just kind of, to me, I just feel like, that's just a natural progression of things. You know what I'm saying? I can understand him coming straight off the Pacquiao fight and then getting a title shot against somebody. But with all things playing out as they did with him getting the Pacquiao fight and then not fighting for 2 years, all this ring rust, it's only right that Thurman gets in the mix and at least get a W, and then try to fight one of the top tier guys. Yeah, Joe Brown. I had Ugas. I had Ugas beating Thurman like 8-4 or 9-3 or something. If you go back on my channel, you can see where I made a video about it after the fight. I was, I kind of felt like that was just one of them things where the politics of boxing dictated that Sean Porter get that win so that he can get the Spence fight, because it was already kind of predetermined that was the next fight. So I definitely had Ugas. I felt like Ugas to date, and I said that back then, I felt like Ugas beat Sean Porter more handily than anybody that he ever fought. I feel like if Ugas didn't do enough to beat Sean Porter, Keith Thurman didn't do enough to beat him, and Kell Brook didn't do enough to beat him. But I also felt like on the flip side that, I felt the same way about if Sean Porter did enough to beat Ugas, then he definitely should have got the nod over Thurman, and he should have got the nod over Kell Brook. But, that's just my opinion. I even feel like Ugas beat him, other than the fact that he didn't get a knockdown that counted. I felt like he beat him just as bad as Spence beat him. Yeah, and Nathan, that's I respect that. A lot of people, saw the fight, in Spence's favor. In Porter's favor. But I also feel like some of those people, not saying you're one of them, I feel like some people went into that fight expecting Porter to win. So it was hard for them to give Ugas rounds when he was posturing and things like that. But I just felt like he negated everything Porter was trying to do. And I felt like Porter and his team knew it at the end of the fight, and they spent time trying to spin it like that's what they intended to do. I just felt like they ran out of answers. Sean Porter seemed like he ran out of answers against Adonis Ugas, and he just started trying to knock him out, and that wouldn't work. Yeah, I see on that 7-5 Thurman versus Porter. That's a common score a lot of people had. I think I actually had it 7-5 the other way. But, I definitely could see, rounds that went to Thurman. You could never call that a robbery. That fight was so close between Porter and Thurman that either way, it was a good, you got to just give it up. It was a good fight, but you can't really, go to, you'll be out there on the limb crying robbery in that fight. It was just such a close fight. PBC ain't got no time for a Thurman fight a Cherry. For Thurman to fight a Cherry, Thurman and Ugas need to be made if Pac rematch don't happen by the end of the year. Joe Brown, one thing about that is that with Thurman, and I don't mean this as any slight on him, but with him being inactive like he is, it's almost like if you look back at the Josecito Lopez fight and how that played out in its entirety, you can't risk Keith Thurman in with too tough of a non-name fighter. He may mess around and get beat. So I can see PBC looking at it like, hey, this guy, is a valuable name. He's a guy that people recognize, and he's somebody that, we might as well put him in with a good opponent that if they beat him, we got something to build off of. You don't want to put Thurman back in with Josecito Lopez and he mess around and lose that fight because you can't really go anywhere with Josecito Lopez. But if you put him in with Boots Ennis, you put him in with Porter in a rematch, you put him in with Ugas, it's a win-win for PBC, So I respect, I definitely respect that position. I just would like to see the guy get in the win column before he gets that type of fight for his own good and for, for respectability standpoint. Rod X, a lot of people didn't know who Ugas was before the Porter fight. Rod X, it's funny that you say that because I watched Shannon Sharp and Skip Bayless talk about the fight, and Sean Porter, and Shannon Sharp kept referring to Ugas as this guy, that guy. He never did really refer to him. Sorry about that, y'all. He never did really refer to him by name. So that told me that, he really didn't know who Adonis Ugas was. He was not some guy that he was just not some guy that showed up on fight night. He was actually, we know who he is. We know who he is. We know who he was coming in. But I felt like Shannon Sharp just, sorry, y'all, I got this phone right beside me. But Shannon Sharp just saw him as another opponent, just some guy. So when he went out and did what he did, it was a surprise because these guys had no idea. Now I'm just talking about Shannon Sharp, but think about it. Shannon Sharp is more knowledgeable about boxing than a lot of casual fans. So for him not to know who Adonis Ugas was or to act like he didn't, that tells me that a lot of these casual fans didn't know who he was. And even when you go around these different forums and things and you see what they said on in a lot of these forums going in, they had no idea who Adonis Ugas was. A lot of people would just count wins and losses and felt like he was some guy that was just going to go in there and get beat. But he was up for the task, and he went in there and he did his thing like a lot of people expected him to do. I didn't expect him to lay down. I'll be honest. I fell a victim of looking at these pictures and seeing that bicep, and it had me scared to pick him for the win. I mean, I wasn't going to put a wager on the fight or anything, but just for bragging rights and just for, Champ Ross fantasy boxing picks, I was going to pick him. But that bicep scared me away. Y'all saw salute, L-Dub, salute. But yeah, so for me, I definitely feel like a lot of people just didn't know who he was, but I guarantee a lot of those people know who he is now. And anybody who saw that fight feels like he just got lucky, or he just caught Pacquiao at the right time, or he was just beneficiary of the late substitution and all that. I feel like they really haven't looked at Adonis Ugas and his body of work in its entirety and see what the guy brings to the table and see the type of fighter that he is. And, that he's just not some flash in the pan who caught Manny Pacquiao at the right. That sentiment could be made for, you could possibly make that for Jeff Horn and say that Manny Pacquiao may have overlooked him and things like that. And, he was never as good as he was against Manny Pacquiao again. And for me, I'm not one of those people who feel like Jeff Horn got a gift decision. I felt like Jeff Horn beat Manny Pacquiao. And I felt like, Manny Pacquiao should have never been in that type of fight against Jeff Horn. For Manny Pacquiao to be who he is, who he was going into that fight, I felt like Jeff Horn was supposed to be cannon fodder, and it didn't play out that way. Manny Pacquiao was in, for a dog fight. And the fact that it was a dog fight spoke volumes for the fight, for where Manny Pacquiao was at that time, and also for, the fact that Jeff Horn really got up for the event. But if you look at Adonis Ugas and you look at Jeff Horn and their body of work, Adonis Ugas, his body of work says that he's the part. He is on that level. You can't say that for Jeff Horn, not in hindsight. So that's the way I look at that. I feel like Adonis Ugas, I also think Adonis Ugas is a threat, not only to Errol Spence, but to any welterweight. I feel like the guy has to be taken seriously. You can't just, and I don't think any of these guys just look at him and look at wins and losses and say, I'm gonna wreck this guy. These boxers, they know what these other guys bring to the table. I don't think they just go into these situations just feel like, yeah, I'm gonna wreck this guy. He's lost to this person, he lost to that person, or he let Manny Pacquiao touch him up like that, so I know I can do this. I don't think so. They look at, I ain't gonna say all of them, but I don't think a lot of them really. I think they do dissect these opponents and really think about what they bring to the table and, how things could fare if they don't take these fights, seriously, and if they don't look at these opponents and really dissect what they bring to the table and what they can do to them, that they can find themselves in a Manny Pacquiao, Jeff Horn type situation. I never believe Joe Brown said, I never believed that once I saw how he was moving at the weigh-in, I felt he would be fine in the ring. You're talking about Ugas versus Pacquiao, Joe Brown? One thing Manny can build for a rematch is saying, I didn't have a real count for Ugas this time. I'll be ready. Yeah, Joe Brown. He could say that. My only thing is, and I do get the Errol was a lefty. Errol's a lefty. Ugas isn't. He's an orthodox fighter, and all of that. And that's a switch. But at the same time, most fighters, salute Bruce Goes, most fighters are used to, whether they're left-handed or right-handed, they're used to fighting right-handed fighters. I don't know the particular numbers, but even in sports, most athletes, most people on earth are right-handed people. So that carries over to sports, that carries over to boxing. Most boxers are right-handed. So Manny Pacquiao is used to seeing right-handed fighters, even though in this particular instance he was training for a left-handed fighter in Errol Spence Jr. He also was training for a certain tier of fighter. Errol Spence Jr. is the creme de la creme at 147. He's the top shelf. So with Manny Pacquiao training for that level of fighter, and then getting your Dennis Ugas as a late replacement, he didn't have to elevate to prepare for Ugas. He was already preparing for a fighter that was at or above that plane. And then when you look at on the flip side, your Dennis Ugas, no disrespect to Fabian Madonna, but your Dennis Ugas was basically training to fight a prospect, / contender. He was fighting a guy who was going to be in his toughest fight to date versus himself. Your Dennis Ugas is going to be his toughest challenge or his most notable opponent. So I feel like your Dennis Ugas, if anyone was at a disadvantage with the late replacement, I felt like your Dennis Ugas was. Taking on a Manny Pacquiao in the 11th hour is a tall order. And much respect to Pacquiao for agreeing to take on Ugas too, because Ugas is no slouch. He could have easily said, no, I'm not going to fight that guy. That's, so that's not the caliber of opponent that I'm going to take on short notice. But, even after the fact, Pacquiao said is still talking like he felt like Ugas should have been a walkover. He's talking about that's as easy. And I haven't heard Pacquiao say this. These are quotes that I'm seeing, that Ugas is as easy as an opponent and that fight should have been easy and this, that, and the other. I don't subscribe to that. I think Manny could fight your Dennis Ugas 5 more times. It'll be a tough fight all 5 times. I'm not going to say that the outcome will be the same every time, because like I always say, every fight night when a fighter shows up for a fight, you get a different guy than was in his last fight. These guys go through a lot in training camps. They're human just like us. They go through trials and tribulations in life and things like that they carry with them in the ring. And different things they got going on and hang-ups and different nagging injuries and things like that. You get a different fighter every night on fight night. Every time these guys step in the ring, I feel like they're a different guy. Sometimes they're improved, sometimes they're diminished, sometimes they're a little more shop worn, they're a little more weary, but they're not the exact same guy they were in the last fight. So I can't sit here and honestly say that I feel like if Manny Pacquiao fought your Dennis Ugas 5 more times, he'd lose every time. But the reality would be that Manny is that much older and he would have taken that many more punches. So if I had to guess, I would say that the odds of him winning would decrease with every bout. But, he always has a puncher's chance. But the adjustment doesn't favor Manny Pacquiao. Manny Pacquiao doesn't show a propensity to adjust to adjust to what's the word I'm looking for? To adjust to complications in the ring or adversity. That's what I was trying to say. I'm sorry. To adjust to adversity in the ring. He tends to get stuck in doing what he does. And if it doesn't work, he just does it harder. This is what I'm going to do. And if this isn't working, I'm going to do the same thing just a little bit harder. I'm going to do the same thing just a little bit faster. I'm gonna do the same thing with a little bit more. My feet gonna move a little faster. You know what I'm saying? So I just don't see Manny Pacquiao being in a situation where if he fought Ugas again in a rematch, I just can't see him making the necessary adjustments to beat him. But it's boxing. You know, to me, I feel like your Dennis Ugas wouldn't go into a fight with Manny Pacquiao starstruck. He wouldn't be it. He wouldn't have these butterflies or anything like that. Like, oh man, I'm fighting Manny Pacquiao. I can't say that he had that the first time, but I feel like it had to be a matter of reality setting in that was actually Manny Pacquiao that was going to be opposite ring of him. And I say that based on some of the things he said about chasing Manny Pacquiao or living in Pacquiao's shadow for a year. You know, I've spoke about this in one of my videos, or maybe 2 of them or 3 of them, that Dennis Ugas, when he won his title, when he won that vacant WBA regular title, he was very happy about it. He went to social media to celebrate, and people clowned him and criticized him for basically called him a fraudulent champ. You know, it was like, he let him know that Manny Pacquiao was the real WBA champion and that he just had a minor title. And you know, like basically they treated him unlike they do a lot of these other guys who get these interim titles and regular titles, and they call him champ and they show him respect and they act like they're the guy. But they didn't treat Dennis Ugas with that respect. They treated Dennis Ugas as if he was a guy who found a title on the side of the road and picked it up and said, I'm going to walk around with this on and I'm going to say I'm the champ and people are going to respect it. So when that happened, I feel like Dennis Ugas was right in saying that he wanted to fight Manny Pacquiao and he wanted to prove that he was the real champion. But at this time, Pacquiao wasn't an active fighter. He was, you know, pretty much, you know, on hiatus. COVID happened, you know, things like that. And at the same time, once he got elevated to Pacquiao to become the super champion in Dennis Ugas, the criticism got louder. So I felt like the opportunity to fight Manny Pacquiao was a moment that he had to seize. And the reality is that for a guy like Dennis Ugas, to be honest, I don't think he ever would have got a Manny Pacquiao fight at this stage in Pacquiao's career, except for being in the situation that he found himself in as a late replacement. Aside from that, Pacquiao couldn't hear the noise that Dennis Ugas was making about wanting that fight. That's a fight. Pacquiao's looking down the mountain at Dennis Ugas, like, who is this guy screaming my name? And I got to look past the Terrence Crawfords of the world, the Sean Porters of the world, the Errol Spencers of the world, the Keith Thurmans of the world. And all of these guys look down at this guy and give him a fight. Now you can keep that title, or I'll petition to get my title back. You know, I just don't feel like no matter how much Dennis Ugas screamed Pacquiao's name, he was never going to get a fight from Pacquiao just based off of the merit of him being the champion. You know what I'm saying? Unless Pacquiao was on some crusade to become undisputed and he had the last title, which that wouldn't make sense for Pacquiao at this point in his career. And at the same time, you also have to look at the fact that Dennis Ugas really, and I hate to say this, but he really brought nothing to the table that would make Manny Pacquiao say, yeah, I want to fight that guy. So, you know, it's just one of them things where he was never going to get that fight. And, you know what I'm saying, he was fortunate, and I hate to use the word fortunate when it was at someone else's, at the expense of another guy, but he was fortunate to be in the right position at the right time when Errol Spence Jr. had to pull out of the fight, and he got his opportunity to get the fight against Pacquiao. He seized that moment. But now we know Manny Pacquiao sees him. Manny Pacquiao knows who Dennis Ugas is now, and now Dennis Ugas has something Manny Pacquiao wants, and that's a win over him. He wants to return the favor and beat Dennis Ugas, but I just don't. I think for my money, I would say that Manny Pacquiao probably should stay away from Dennis Ugas if he's just going in there for the sake of trying to get his win back. You know what I'm saying? I don't see it faring well for Pacquiao. All right, y'all. I don't see anybody comment anymore. I don't know if y'all just stopped talking or stopped typing, or if I'm still live. Y'all still hear me? I mean, I know people are doing other things. Sometimes they're listening and because I do it a lot myself. I'm listening to someone live stream, but a lot of times I got other stuff going on in the background, so I'm not really active in the chat. Just want to make sure y'all still hear me. Y'all hear me okay? Okay. Good stuff. Good stuff. So thank you, y'all. So let's talk about just for a minute. I just want to talk about Keith Thurman a little more in depth, because Thurman is doing. Yeah, me too, Joe Brown. I understand. I want to see Manny fight too, but I don't want to see Manny go out. I don't want to see Manny ruined as a person as a result of the sport of boxing. I don't want him to be one of those guys that hang around one fight too much. You know, that's one thing they say about boxers is it's better to take one punch too few than one punch too many, or to get out one fight too early than one fight too late. That's my concern. But at the end of the day, he has people on his team who are supposed to help him make those type decisions. And as a fan, it's not really my place. I can just voice my opinion, but I'll never be one to just adamantly and vehemently be against these guys fighting. I hear you, L Dub. I appreciate you listening, man. Be careful on that road. Salute, Nitty G. I'll never be one of those guys that's vehemently campaigning for these guys to get out of the sport. Like I said, they have people around them who are supposed to help them make these type of decisions. They're supposed to be the ones that have helped them navigate their way through their career to the point that they are right now. So for me as a fan, I'm not going to be campaigning for these guys to get out of the sport, and I'm not going to feel bad or feel pressured in any way, shape, form, or fashion if they choose to fight a little too long and there's some adverse effect about it. I can feel how I feel about it if something happens, but it is what it is. I mean, I look at Adonis Stevenson, a guy who, you know, took a few punches to me, had a horrible experience in his last fight, and we see what happened to him. Fortunately for him, you know, he's on the men, not nearly as bad as what a lot of people thought he was going to be, but he's not the same person as a result of his last fight. And with that being said, you know, that very same fight, he was close to stopping his, you know, to me, it looked like he was on his way to getting a stoppage at one point in that fight. And had that stoppage happened, he would have went on and fought someone else, and he may have went on and fought an even worse opponent for him who could have hurt him even worse. So you just never know. Boxing is the hurt business. It's called that for a reason. And, you know what I'm saying? I respect all these guys who get in the ring. I get on here sometime and talk my junk about some of these fighters. But there's not a fighter in boxing who I don't respect to an extent for the fact that they're getting in there doing what they do. Because, like I said, it wasn't the path I chose for myself. You know, I chose football more so than any sport that I was dedicated to. And even with that, you know what I'm saying, a lot of people don't stick with that because of, you know what I'm saying, nowadays, because of what they learned about CTE and stuff like that. Like my boys play, you know what I'm saying, all four of my sons played football at some point or another, but when they decided to get out of it, there was no pushback for me. The only one that still plays is my youngest son. There was no pushback for me for him to stick with it, because I felt like, you know, it was their choice. And if something went wrong, I didn't want that hanging over my head, and I made them feel like they had to stay in the sport longer than they wanted to. So I definitely wouldn't, you know, do that with these boxers who I have no personal connection to. King Louis, salute, fam. But yeah, Thurman, man, I'm tired. Thurman's entertaining, right? He's always entertaining to listen to. If y'all listen to my channel any amount of time, Trey, salute. If y'all listen to my channel in an amount of time, y'all probably have heard me refer to Thurman in some of my videos as Captain OG Reedmore. And I say that because oftentimes Thurman could be like super solid about what he's talking about. And then when he was being asked about Errol Spence Jr., he started talking in parables and riddles and soliloquies and all kind of stuff. So I just kind of felt like, you know, like, man, every time Spence is brought up, he turns into Captain OG Reedmore. You know, he starts telling stories and this, that, and the other. So, you know, but he's always entertaining to listen to. I think he'll do great with a podcast. Someone said, I saw on Porter's podcast, someone was talking about they like for Porter to bring him on because he has good chemistry. They have good chemistry together. But I feel like at some point they start arguing. But Thurman, he's very, he's very knowledgeable about the sport. He's very in tune with the fans, even though he doesn't always act like it. And I think that, Keith Thurman is well overdue to getting back in the ring. I want to see, as entertaining as he is for interviewers and for us to watch the interviews, as fun as he is to listen to and how funny he is at times, I definitely would prefer to see Keith Thurman in the ring rather than see him continuously doing interviews and working out and critiquing other fighters and things like that. Because all of that stuff he can still do while he's fighting. But what he's doing is letting himself age. And he doesn't know and won't know until he gets in the ring how much the layoffs are affecting him. Is he rejuvenating or is he getting stale? Manny Pacquiao, one of the things he said was he thought that the layoff was going to do him some good to be out of the ring like he was. But then when he got in the ring with Ugas, it turns out that, I'm not going to say the layoff was the reason, but it turns out that he wasn't like reinvigorated and rejuvenated or nothing. He kind of like, to me, he picked up where he left off in the Keith Thurman fight, because at the tail end of that Keith Thurman fight, Manny Pacquiao was, he was taking some heat. And, he just had the power to keep Keith Thurman off of him, and he hurt Keith Thurman bad a couple times late. But for the most part, the second half of that fight, you could argue that it belonged to Keith Thurman. There's a lot of guys out there for Keith Thurman to fight. There are a lot of guys that are on the way up. There are a lot of guys that are on his level. There are some guys, maybe looked at on the way out of the sport. I mean, there's guys galore for Thurman to fight, but Thurman is one of those people who has this sense of self in terms of where he feels he is in the sport, that he's not going to just take any old fight they give him. There's certain people or a certain level of fighter that he feels like he belongs in the ring with, and those are the type of guys that you're going to get Keith Thurman interested in fighting. But there's also guys that I think Keith Thurman probably feels like are too high a risk for where he is at this stage in his career right now, and they could potentially derail his goals of getting certain fights that he wants. So, I don't think we'll see Keith Thurman fighting the up-and-coming guys who seem to have a little bit too much steam behind them, like a Virgil Ortiz, like a Boots Ennis, not a Conor Ben, those guys. Even though, I'm sure people feel like, there's some people who probably feel like Keith Thurman would have his way with Conor Ben, but at the same time, I just don't see that being a fight that Keith Thurman would jump on. I want to see Keith Thurman. I have no issue with the Keith Thurman running it back with Josecito Lopez. I just don't see that's the type of fight that PBC would risk putting him in again. I don't think that Mikey Garcia and Keith Thurman is a fight that would happen. Mikey Garcia is talking about a stay busy fight, but in actuality, it's a get busy fight because Mikey hadn't done anything since the Jesse Vargas fight. Went over there to the zone and got that money grab, and he kind of sat around and enjoyed it, So it's not just Keith Thurman who's not very busy. We got Terrence Crawford sitting on the shelf since the fight with Kell Brook. Hadn't done nothing but get on Twitter and talk, and he's helping train guys and he's working out, but there's no fight announcement on the horizon. I just, like I said, for me, Keith Thurman, there's so many guys you could throw him in there with, but the reality is that you just don't know what the PBC is going to do with him. They don't know if it's the PBC not offering certain fights up to him, or if it's Thurman turning fights down, guys turning Thurman down. You just don't know. Yeah, Joe Brown, I think Mikey has looked very pedestrian at 147. I wasn't impressed with Mikey in the Vargas fight. I don't remember, but I think I might have felt like Vargas was in that fight other than the knockdown. I think I might have favored Vargas in the fight other than the fact that he got knocked down, got dropped a few times. And I think it might have been a difference on my card as to why Mikey won the fight. But I don't remember that fight a whole lot. I wasn't, you know what I'm saying? I wasn't checking for that fight a whole lot. I have no problem whatsoever with Mikey versus Tank at 140 or 147, whatever weight they can agree on. Trey X, I like that fight. I like that fight for Tank more than I like the Thurman fight. I'm not saying that I don't think he can hold his own with Thurman, but I like that. I think the Mikey fight is probably a better fight for him. You know, I think he beat Mikey, but I feel more confident about him beating Mikey than I do about Thurman. But at the end of the day, if whichever fight he wants, if they can put it together, I'm not in the fight blocking business. He can go out there and fight, and you know, whoever he wants to fight. He can fight that Paul brother, or he can fight whoever. If they want to make the fight, run him on up to light heavyweight to fight somebody they want to. That's them. He gets knocked out, it's on them. Well, you know, I'll come on here and talk about it. You know, that I don't know, man. I'm just trying to think about L-Dub said he scored at 1-6 in rounds, 114, 113 for Mikey with knockdown. Okay. Yeah. And that's probably in line with what I had. I think I had it pretty close. Like I said, I don't really remember because I wasn't terribly excited about that fight. But it was a fight that I kind of was like, well, you know, this is to give us another glimpse at Mikey at 147, because you got Errol Spence Jr. at 147 isn't just a typical check-in at 147 and see how I can hold my own at 147 type fight. You're talking about going to a division and right away taking on Top Shelf. You know, you're talking about going into the division right away taking on, you know, the top guy or one of the top guys. I'll say the top guy because he's consistently been my top 147-pound fighter ever since the since the Porter fight, or maybe the Kell Brook fight. I don't remember, but he's been my top guy at 47 for a while. So I'm gonna say the top guy at 47. So I didn't want to look at that fight and say that Mikey was not 147-pounder or couldn't hold his own. So I was in a way interested to see how Mikey versus Vargas was going to go, just to see how Mikey could hold his own against, say, average or, you know, decent 147-pound fighter who wasn't the top shelf. And, you know, he did okay, but I felt like if it wasn't for the knockdown, he probably was going to lose that fight or get a draw. But for some reason, I thought he knocked him down more than one time, but I might be wrong. Like I said, I wouldn't check for that fight like that. Mikey fight for Tank is good money. It's a good money fight. Other than that, Tank, man, tell me about it, man. Tank versus Gary Russell Jr. Man, that's a why not do it fight. You know, like there's, you know, no reason in the world other than nonsense, you know, for them not to be trying to make that fight. And it's like they're moving Tank further away from Gary Russell Jr. in terms of weight. So it's like the fight's getting further and further away from reality. But for me, you know, and don't get me wrong, I don't want anybody to come on here or hear this video and think that I'm trying to say that Tank is running from Gary Russell, the reason he's going up in weight. I'm just stating the obvious that Gary Russell Jr. is a 126-pounder, and Tank is now fighting at 140 as of the last time we saw him in the ring, so they're getting further away in weight. And Gary was saying he was willing to come up to 30 for Tank, maybe 35. I don't want to see Gary Russell Jr. at 140, you know, versus anybody. But, you know, at the end of the day, that's kind of, you know, the way they're moving Tank, you know what I'm saying? Like they're big game hunting, and they're strategically doing it is kind of akin to what they did with Canelo. You know, they moved him around to get belts, and, you know what I'm saying? It's almost an attempt, especially with these regular titles. I say all the time, it's kind of a way to cheat history, because historically, when people look back, you know, 5, 10, 15, 20 years from now, they're not going to dissect the championship picture and say, wait a minute, Tank wasn't the WBA champion at 140. It was Taylor who was unified, who was undisputed. They're just going to see that Tank Davis was champion at 140, 135, and 130 simultaneously, just like Canelo did when he went to 168, had a title at 160, and then won that title at 175. And they tried to act as if he matched Henry Armstrong, which was straight malarkey. But a lot of people who didn't know any better respected that. All right. Excuse me. Trey X said, have I already spoken of WBA belt reduction? I have not, but I'm glad that's happening. From my understanding, I hadn't delved too deep into it in terms of researching what they're talking about, but I have read a little bit about it, and I've seen a couple people, other people talking about it. From my understanding, it looks like they're going to eliminate, like anywhere where there's not an interim champ, there's not going to be one. They're going to just do away with the belt. Where they have an interim champ and a regular champ, it's my understanding that they're going to order them to fight each other to eliminate the extra belt. And then I'm hoping that at some point they do the same thing with the regular and the super. Like I said, I haven't looked too much into it. I'm kind of like, fed up with the WBA right now because of, among other things, what happened in the Michael Fox fight. So I kind of like really was like, okay, by the time y'all do something decent, but let's see if y'all stick with it, because this is something the WBA has done in the past where they promised to get rid of belts and they start moving toward that direction. Then when people weren't paying attention anymore, they went back to adding all these titles again. So, but it's definitely ridiculous that they got 2, 3, 4 champions in weight classes and, things like that. And I think even, and I'll even go to the WBC and talk about something that I think they need to do. Excuse me. The WBC, and I'm just going to touch on Devin Haney because he's the guy that this happens to. First of all, I think the WBC need to order Teofimo Lopez and Devin Haney to fight and get rid of that franchise championship, that franchise distinction. There's no point in that in boxing. They only have it in 2 divisions. I think they need to get rid of it. I think at 160, they need to go ahead and do away with it because Canelo's not fighting at 160 again, according to him. And he hasn't fought in that division for, I think, over 2 years now. So there's no point in him having it. But I feel like they need to order Haney and Teofimo Lopez to fight. And if Lopez declines to fight or Haney declines to fight, understandably for legitimate reasons, but if they decline to fight, whoever is the side not trying to make the fight should lose their title, and the other champion should be the champion, of the WBC at 135. I feel like when it comes to these guys like Ryan Garcia, guys like Jojo Diaz, these guys who have won the right to become the WBC mandatory at 135 pounds, but then decide to go elsewhere instead of fighting the champion once they become the mandatory, I feel like these guys should be stripped of their interim title, and they should also, or silver title, whatever that title is called, they should also be dropped in the rankings. I feel like if you fight your way up to a title shot and then you decline that title shot, there's no point in you hovering around in the top 10. I feel like they drop these guys in the rankings. That'll stop these guys from maneuvering their way up the rankings only to get to what they're supposed to be working toward and turn it down. But, that's just my thoughts on it. I don't have all the answers, but, if it was my decision to make, that would be what I would do. Trey X, I see your comment on Gary Russell versus Navarrete. Great fight. I would love to see that fight more so than love to see it. I would love to hear you call it. I feel like that would be a fight that could potentially be what they call an instant classic, like they say in football, on the ESPN. That would be an instant classic fight. Probably somebody would watch it and turn right back around and watch it again. But that could be a fight that could go terribly wrong for either fighter, or it could be a great back and forth affair. Just never know. Salute, Hyphy. Hey, Eric R. Salute. I don't know if I said that earlier. I saw your name. I think I was in the middle of speaking on something, and I meant to holler at you, and I didn't. But salute, man. Welcome to the chat, man. I'm glad y'all And any of y'all that in here, man, I'm glad y'all, took time out of your day, out of your evening, what I'm saying, to show up and support. This is my first time really doing a sustained live stream for any period of time. And some of y'all just got in here late. I actually didn't mean to go live. I was just trying to mess around a little bit with StreamYard and see how it works and things like that, and messed around and was live. I thought I had this as a private video, but it wasn't. A private live stream, but it wasn't. But either way, I'm glad y'all are here. I ended up, I've ended up speaking longer than I wanted to, but it's always good to talk boxing. Like I tell anybody, it's not like I can, go to the corner and just chop it up about boxing with somebody in my neighborhood. It's not like I can, even when I go to the barbershop and get a trim, you know what I'm saying? Those guys, in there, they like to talk about college football. I live not far from Clemson University, so most of these people here are Clemson fans. They want to talk about Clemson football. I'm a Georgia Tech fan, so a lot of times we don't even have good conversation because Georgia Tech's been losing to Clemson consistently over the last several years. But a lot of these guys don't want to, so they're not really into boxing, which, unfortunately, that's kind of how it is. A lot of places in the U.S., boxing fans are few and far in between, and devoted boxing fans like those of us, in this chat, or even further, fewer and further in between, because a lot of people just don't, so they don't have the stomach for boxing, in terms of all the stuff you got to put up with to be a boxing fan, and things like that. So, I'm glad y'all are here. Give me the opportunity to talk about boxing. And even to do it on this type of platform where, I can, kind of have live interaction, like I do when I'm on channels like Marlowe's Corner, supporting their lives, or L-Dub, and people like that. Because when I, when I drop a video, all I get is guys come in and comment on the video, say what they feel about it, and and most time I reply, but they moved on. That time they moved on. They probably watched 10 or 15 other videos since they've, they dropped their comment. So they're not thinking about what I got to say in response a lot of times. So, and it was good to have that back and forth interaction. So like I said, I just want to say I appreciate y'all for stopping by. Probably go a little bit longer. I got to go, run off somewhere here in a minute, but I talk a little bit more about this boxing. Boots versus Delorme. Yeah, Delorme does fight back. Delorme is one of those guys I think a lot of people don't give, don't give the credit, he's a guy, Delorme is one of those guys that is easy to disregard if he doesn't get a nod when he probably deserved to win a fight. I don't think I don't think a lot of times, he's one of those guys that, that he's in a fight. He probably did enough to edge out the win, but the other guy is the house fighter, or the other guy is the guy that's on a more natural trajectory, or he's on a path and they have plans for him. So it's easy for them to go the other way. And a lot of times fans don't even pay any attention because they're like, he's a guy that's been losing anyway. That's just Delorme. A lot of guys don't particularly like how Delorme fights either. Kind of like my guy, what's the Cuban guys, the brothers that had an ugly style. L-Dub, help me out. They don't fight anything like the other Cubans. One of them fought Robert Easter not long ago in a horrible fight that I would pay pay-per-view money for them not to fight a rematch. What's the brother's name? Come on, L-Dub. I know you know what I'm talking about. Awkward fighting Cubans. It's about three. I think it's three brothers. Two of them still fighting. One of them fought Relic, and I think he got a decision or a draw that should have been a win. Anyway, maybe L-Dub will come back with the answer. Somebody will. But anyway, guys like that, those are the type of guys that don't get the nod, and a lot of times boxing fans are kind of like, I don't care. Or same thing like Regendow. Nobody's gonna cry over Regendow getting robbed or not getting a nod when he probably deserved it. Bartholomew, that's it. The Bartholomew brothers. You know, so like a lot of people don't, you know what I'm saying, nobody really cares about Rances or I forget the younger brother's name. I know I think the older brother doesn't box anymore. I think it's 3 of them. But yeah, thank y'all for that. That's what I was talking about. But yeah, you know, nobody's gonna cry or put up a stink about these guys not getting a nod when they've earned a win. So that's why I say, you know, that's why I say I think Delorme gets looked at the same way. You know, he's one of those guys that people aren't gonna have a fit if these guys don't get a nod. And I think Delorme's the type of guy that he has to go like above and beyond to get a win. So, but yeah, Delorme versus Boots would be a good fight. I definitely would favor Boots in that fight, but it will be something different. It'll be something different than what we've seen Boots in with. Most definitely. You know what I'm saying? Definitely something different than what we've seen for him. And Delorme, I think he'd show something different because he'd have to. Delorme is not the kind of guy that, you know what I'm saying, he's been fighting. And he'd have to stop Delorme to get a knockout. Delorme's not gonna lay down for him. But you know, Boots is the type person that he'll oblige. If you want to be stopped, if you feel like you got to be stopped, he's gonna go out there and try his darndest to stop you. You know what I'm saying? That's the kind of guy he is. So, you know, but you know what I'm saying? I'm not here to crap on Boots or anything. Like I said, I want to see him in with different styles and different type guys because for a while I felt Boots was fighting the same fighter over and over. You know, that was kind of the way I saw it. Hey, thanks for that update, L Dub. I see that Bartholomew versus Puello on the Wilder Fury undercard. Hey, they gotta have some fights on there. I really wish they would stack the mess out of that undercard and really give us some top-notch fights. AL Dub is the what's his name? Sanchez versus FA still gonna be on the undercard of that fight. And what about Big Baby Anderson? Is he still gonna fight on the undercard since they removed the date? If there's an actual card to fight on. Yeah, Hyphy. Easter versus Bartholomew was probably worse because those guys were actually engaging with each other and the fight still was a stinker. I'd watch Rigo versus Casemiro like 10 more times before I'd ever watch Bartholomew versus Easter again. And I definitely wouldn't watch it if they made a rematch of the fight. I wouldn't dare subject myself to that. And the crazy thing is, because I wouldn't watch the rematch, the fight probably would end up being a good fight. But I don't see how. Because Easter hadn't really made good fights, you know what I'm saying, lately himself without having a bad opponent or a bad stylistic matchup. Well, although the fight with Adrian Granados was pretty good, I felt like Granados won that fight. But Adrian Granados is another one of those hard luck fighters. Nobody kicks up any dust when Adrian Granados doesn't get the nod. They kind of like, it's just Adrian Granados. Yeah, he always gives a good fight, but he always comes up just short. But to me, oftentimes I've had Adrian Granados winning these fights that nobody else, nobody who mattered had him winning in terms of the people who actually, the people who actually make the judgments in boxing. Yeah, LeDuan, that's the little brother. I don't remember. There is another one, L Dub. I mean, you probably know this, but there is an older brother that used to box as well. But I think he kind of just faded off and stopped boxing eventually. I think he boxed as a pro. I'm not 100% sure. I missed my. Hey, Eric R. I'm sorry. I just saw your comment about your cousin who used to talk boxing with religiously every Saturday. It passed away a few years back. Rest in peace to your cousin Ivan. My condolences, man. I know it's been a while, but what I'm saying, when you miss them, you miss them. You know what I'm saying? I just, what I'm saying, not to get off track, but I got a lot of cousins. Like my grandparents, what I'm saying, had 11 kids. So what I'm saying, well, 10 that actually lived, but So I got a lot of first cousins, man, and like my closest first cousins that I grew up under, two brothers, which it was four brothers. One of them died when we were kids, and then the baby boy, he's still alive, but the two older ones who I kind of was with all the time, both of them died a couple years. Like one died 2 years ago, and the other one died 3 years before him. And man, it's tough. You know what I'm saying? They weren't really boxing fans, but those were my cousins, man. We talked all the time, and you know what I'm saying? So I definitely, you know what I'm saying, empathize and sympathize with you for the loss of your cousin. But yep, the original back to the chat. L Dub saying the original undercard is still in place. So we're still gonna get Helena's Kalnaki, Anderson versus the Russian. Berlanga's gonna be on there. Sanchez and F. Yeah, I like that, man. That and it makes sense for them to stack the card. There's not a lot of you know what I'm saying, a lot of cards, because a lot of these cards are getting canceled. So why not stack the one that you really expect and need to get a lot of traction behind? Stack it the best you can. I know these aren't the creme de la creme boxers, but I think that's a very solid card for a boxing fan like me. I like that card a lot. There's some fights on there that's going to tell me a lot about the heavyweight division going forward. You know, Sanchez and F.A. Ajagba, that's a fight that Trey X and I been talking about, want to see for the better part of probably 2 years now. You know what I'm saying? And there's a lot of people who, for one reason or another, feel like F.A. Ajagba was just going to run over Sanchez. I'm not of that belief. I mean, I could be wrong. F.A. has some legitimate power, and he seems to be getting better at learning how to set up that power. But I think Sanchez is just ahead of him by a lot in terms of technical ability, in terms of execution, in terms of, you know, just knowing his way around a boxing ring, and he should be. You know, F.A. was late to the sport, but F.A. has an equalizer. But I just feel like Sanchez type of guy. If there's a guy that could take away the equalizer that F.A. Ajagba has, I feel like Sanchez is that guy when it comes to these up and coming contenders in the heavyweight division. You know, so I like that fight a lot, but I wouldn't have had a problem with F.A. or Sanchez versus Anderson, or, you know, any of those other heavyweights that are fighting mixed up. Any combination of those guys fighting each other, to me, makes a good fight. So you got 6 heavyweights there who are all, you know, up and comers, and, you know, one in Helenas who was, you know, on the downward swing. So, well, he seemed to be, but then he beat Kalnaki. So, you know, but I think a lot of people are looking at that as a, you know, lightning in a bottle situation. They're expecting Kalnaki to come back and beat him, but I don't know. You know, it could have been he could have been victim of circumstance where he, you know, he fought this guy too soon after going to war with Chris Arreola, and then it for sure Eric where he went to war with Chris Arreola. But I just think Helenas was a bad matchup for him. I think when he started, you know what I'm saying, when he landed his shots on Helenas and Helenas was still there, I felt like, you know what I'm saying, that was kind of, you know what I'm saying, like shock, you know, for Kalnaki, you know what I'm saying? And then, you know, Helenas had a little more gameness to him than what he thought, but I don't know. Joe Brown said he putting money on Sanchez. Man, I feel you. I don't think that's a bad idea. You know, for me, it just, to me, is it. Like I said, I'm not going to sit here and act like I got a crystal ball, like I can't be wrong. But to me, that's just, you know, it makes sense. You know what I'm saying? That it makes sense that Sanchez would beat F.A. Ajagba, but it's boxing, you know. I mean, there's a lot of people who would say the same thing about, you know, Wilder versus Luis Ortiz. And you know what I'm saying? But to me, it made sense that would be a tough fight, and it was, you know. But at the end of the day, you know what I'm saying, you never know in boxing. And the guy having a big punch can bail him out, you know what I'm saying, of a bad situation. And F.A. definitely has a big punch. I don't think it's as big as a lot of people. It's as big a finishing punch as a lot of people act like it is. But I mean, he hits a guy the right way. He definitely can be lights out. That's for sure. So we got sent Rod X. Okay, Trey X just salute out Rod X. Trey X say he picked Hellenius, major amateur background advantage. Yeah, he did have that. Hellenius, had been fighting at a higher level for a longer too. I wouldn't even attempt to call Fury versus Klitschko. Man, that was a horrible fight to watch. Hyphy talking to Trey X. Joe Brown was talking about the undercard. I'm kind of just going back through the chat, making sure I didn't miss anything that I want to touch on before I get out of here. Yeah. Trey X said that Wilder Fury card is one of the best cards I can remember in recent. Yeah, it is. It is definitely that. If all the fights happen, it's definitely that. No, I don't think I saw it. It's anything I missed. I'm excited to see Wilder fight. Eric R saying this. Yeah, MZ, I'm live. I'm live. I'm live. Yeah. I'm so excited to see the Wilder fight. I want to see how much, and salute MZ, how much from the lab translates into the ring. Yeah, Eric R, I'm with you on that, man. Man, I don't want to talk too much about the conspiracy stuff and none of that. And if you guys are watching my videos, and I know a lot of y'all do, you never really see me do a whole lot of talking about, the things that happen in that Wilder Fury fight. I kind of just, my initial video was, the better man won the fight, gave Fury's credit. As all this stuff came out, I kind of stayed away from it. The only thing I said is, the only thing I've ever talked about is Wilder didn't, and I talked about this live on Marlo and Trey's channel, that when Wilder, once the fight started, Wilder just never seemed like himself. And another thing I saw was J. Diaz actually put a lot of Vaseline or something in Wilder's eyes right before the fight. And don't get me wrong, I'm not saying he did it on purpose. I'm not saying Diaz was some kind of way a conspirator or nothing like that. I'm just saying, like, Wilder was wiping his eyes, kind of, over and over and over, trying to, like, he couldn't focus because, JD has, seemed to have put the Vaseline or whatever it was in his eyes. But, that's just an observation I made, what I'm saying, that, maybe it was, me looking too much into it. But I will say that I don't think anytime soon, I don't think we'll ever see Wilder look that bad again. And I'm not talking about just how he looked late in the fight once his equilibrium was rocked. I'm talking about his reaction to punches, his reflexes seemed not to be, there. There was a lot of things that just didn't look like, didn't look like Wilder. But at the same time, Wilder did some things in there that helped Fury. Like, I felt like he turned into the shot that initially started all the downhill stuff for him. I feel like he turned his head and ended up, helping cause Fury to land that shot that, pretty much messed up his equilibrium. And, me personally, I know a thing or two about equilibrium and a thing or two about having a shot to shit vestibular system and how that plays into your balance and how it takes a lot to get that back where it's supposed to be. And, without telling too much of my personal business, I'll just say that once I saw Wilder's, equilibrium in the shape it was, I never felt like Wilder had even a puncher's chance to end that fight. And he gained all kind of respect from me for the fact that he never really got knocked out. That he was able to stay up as much as he was, and that he essentially finished that fight on his feet. I gained even more respect for him for that. Now, when it comes to all of this other stuff that's come out and all of that, I don't even really get into all that. I never talked about it much on my channel. I never really comment much about it on anybody else's channel. I just like to say that I just say that if Fury is that much better than Wilder as it looked in the second fight, then he should be that much better than Wilder again in the third fight. So let's see if it plays out that way, should we get the fight. And if it doesn't play out that way, then let's break it down and see what the differences were in fight 2 versus fight 3, and why. That's it. No, Trey, you probably saying that to joke around about the Sonny Liston ointment, but no, this was before the fight ever started. What I'm talking about, it was, it was before the opening bell. So what I'm saying, if it was some kind of ointment that Fury had, and he must have put it in, they must have switched it and put it in the other corner or something. But I don't want to talk about that stuff. I don't even like to detract away from, the actual fight by getting too deep into any of that stuff. I mean, the fight happened. I mean, you can't go back and rewind it. I don't care if Fury himself came out and admitted that this is what happened. Nobody's gonna, they're not gonna overturn the fight. I mean, the best thing that could have happened for Wilder is that they were ordered to have the rematch, and we'll see how the rematch plays out. And how it plays out is how it plays out, and we'll see how everything goes. Salute Gil Coles. Keith Thurman fan number 1. Yeah, I talked about your boy Keith for a minute, man. No, I ain't talk bad about him either. I did him justice. I did Keith justice. I want to see Keith in the ring. Gil Coles, that's your man. Who you want to see Keith Thurman in with next? Let me know. Let the chat know. Best trilogy of the year: Chocolatito versus Estrada. Great matchup. Belongo fight Caceres on the Wilder Fury card. He was beating Billy Joe before he got stopped on the YouTube card. I never saw that fight. I never saw that Billy Joe. When I heard that Billy Joe was fighting on YouTube, I just figured, he was fighting a fight that was a for sure win, so I didn't even check for the fight. But appreciate you dropping that info, L-Dub. I'm definitely going to check that out because Belongo makes for exciting fights, and I'm eager to see how Belongo. I'm really eager to see his skills because you don't get to see a whole lot in a guy who is stopping everybody in the first round. So it was a breath of fresh air to see him go the distance, and I think that was his last fight. It was the last one I saw. Even though he almost got a late stoppage, or at least, it can't look like he was going on his way to get a late stoppage, but it wasn't to be. So it was good to see him get some rounds in, because you're not going to stop everybody in the first round. So guys have to go out there and, learn how to put your punches together and put on a good display of skills because you're not going to stop everybody. So it was good to see Belongo go a full, I think it was 10 rounds. May have been 8. I don't remember what it was, but go the distance with somebody. I know it wasn't what he wanted, but it was good to see that. If you're saying you got to get out of here, MZ, hey, salute, peace. But yeah, hey y'all, I ain't like I said, I didn't even mean to go live, so I ain't gonna talk too long. I'm gonna go ahead and I ain't gonna hold you. I'm gonna go ahead and get on off here. Hey, Gil Coles, I want to see Keith Thurman with anybody and everybody too. I just want to see him get in the win column before he gets in there and makes a mess. But I know you got belief in your guy. You think he can hold his own against any of these guys, and it's definitely a not a foregone conclusion that Keith Thurman can hold his own against any of these guys. Keith Thurman is, he's a legit guy, and he was the guy at 147 for a while for a reason. But for me, I just want to see him. I like to see him put himself in a good situation by getting a win versus somebody of note before he goes in there and fights the very, very upper echelon guys at 147 pounds, because I really don't want to hear no excuse about Keith Thurman being on a 2-year layoff. We already hear Manny Pacquiao talking that nonsense about, basically that his body betrayed him, the cramps and this, that, and the other. But, it is what it is. It's boxing. You know what I'm saying? It's boxing, and, it's theater of the unexpected. And, Keith Thurman can very well come in off of all of that layoff and inactivity and get in there and beat somebody. Beat somebody that people think, could beat him. I'll be honest, man. I liked it when Keith Thurman was knocking guys out and dropping guys. I like to see him get back to doing that. That's exciting. I like to see, like anybody else, I like to see knockouts, and I like the fact that Keith Thurman did it with skill. you know, he had some skill with it. He wasn't just, you know, going out there landing haymakers. He was, you know, he put on some, you know, a good display of boxing, but his power was, you know what I'm saying, when for the guys he was knocking out, his power was too much. And sometimes he was stopping guys with volume. You know, he was stopping guys with putting too much hurt on them. They wanted out. You know, it got too hot in their kitchen. And they was like, hey, where's the exit? So, you know, for me, you know, I like that. I want to see Keith in with somebody that, you know what I'm saying, is going to push him. But at the same time, I want him in there with somebody that, you know what I'm saying, he can, you know, that he should be able to look his best against, win or lose. You know what I'm saying? Because, you know, Keith Thurman, for as much crap as I give him, Keith Thurman is definitely, you know, one of the top guys at 147 pounds until proven otherwise. You know, it's like Main Man Made Man said, shout out to him, that, you know, nobody in this era of 147 pounders has beat Keith Thurman. It was Manny Pacquiao who beat him. Now, the same can be said that, you know, Keith Thurman didn't give some of these guys a chance to beat him, you know, but he did give Sean Porter a fight. It was close. Gave Danny Garcia a fight. It was close. But in both of those fights, Keith Thurman was the guy who seemed to get out in front early, but then kind of faded down the stretch. And the thing about that I always looked at as my concern with Keith Thurman was if that happens against the wrong guy, Keith Thurman could find himself in all kind of trouble. You know, especially a guy with a good motor and a high volume, you know, output, that it could be a guy could run downhill on Keith Thurman if he doesn't have a second win. And quite honestly, that was always the way I saw the Errol Spence Keith Thurman fight. And that was why I felt like Keith Thurman stayed away from that fight. But I could have been wrong. You know what I'm saying? We won't know unless these guys, you know, ever get in the ring how that fight could play out. It could play out totally different from what I think or what Keith Thurman, you know, thinks or his fans think or Spence and his fans or whatever. You know what I'm saying? These guys aren't getting in the ring. We can't ever say how a fight would have played out. And I don't even say that about the, you know, a lot of guys talked about Ugas when Ugas beat Pacquiao. People start talking about what Bud or what Keith or what Bud or Spence would have done to him. But I don't just give guys victory by default and say that because another guy who we viewed as less than went out there and done it, that they would have done it or done it better. They got to get in the ring. And, you know what I'm saying, we may never get an opportunity to see those fights. So I'm not going to just say Terrence Crawford would have dominated Manny Pacquiao. I'm not going to just say Errol Spence would have dominated Manny Pacquiao. So with that being said, I'm not going to sit here and just say that these guys just beat Keith Thurman matter of factly. They got to show me they can do it. You know what I'm saying? I have my opinion on how the fights will play out, but the reality is if they don't get in the ring with Keith, you know what I'm saying, or they just discredit and discount him, then we'll never find out. We never will actually know unequivocally who's the better fighter. We'll just have our opinions and we'll debate and we'll talk about it. And these fights will end up being fantasy fights that, you know, 10, 20 years ago, if we're blessed enough to still be around, you know, we'll be talking about the what if. And that's a sad state to be in when these guys are right here, right now, and could be fighting. So hopefully we'll get to see these fights. And like I said, I'm not going to give guys, you know, fights by default and just say, oh, yeah, man, you saw what he did to him. He definitely would have done it because, you know, that's not even triangle theories. That's even because these guys hadn't even fought Ugas as a pro. So we're not even, I guess that's a hexagon theory. I don't know. So I guess it's a square theory maybe. But I don't, you know what I'm saying? So I'm not going to just say these guys would have done this, that, and the other. You know what I'm saying? If you can do it and you feel like you can do it, get in the ring with these guys and show what you can do. Otherwise, we're just speculating, we're guessing, we're trying to hypothesize and come up with an educated decision on what we think would happen. But if they don't actually get in the ring, we will never, ever, ever know. And that's the case. Yeah, man, I'm trying my best to get out of here. And every time I get to somebody says something, man, I can't ever not speak on Bo and Lewis when it comes up. That's a fight that regardless of what people feel like about the trash can situation, that they just think is a foregone conclusion, or they look at what happened in the Olympics and they say that, oh, this is what would have happened in that fight. That's a fight we'll never know what would have happened. We can break it down and look at both guys and look at who they beat, who they lost to, how they matched up stylistically, how they fought. But at the end of the day, we'll never know for certain how that fight would have played out. Only thing we do know for certain is what has happened, and we know both threw the belt in the trash. We know that they signed the fight later on after that, and it was contingent upon Lennox Lewis having a successful defense against Oliver McCall, but Lewis got knocked out, so that killed that fight. And then they either signed or had agreed verbally to fight again, and that was before Bo fought Galata. But then we saw how the first Bo Galata fight went, and it basically begged for a rematch. So then they went back and basically, Bo had the rematch with Galata and then decided he was done with boxing, wanted to join the Marines. So, that's a fight that, we were close to getting a couple times and it just never came to fruition. But everybody has an opinion on who they think win the fight and why. And I mean, honestly, everyone's opinion, there's evidence that could substantiate, their position. I can make a strong case for why Lennox Lewis beats Riddick Bowe, but I can also make an equally strong case for why Bowe beats Lennox Lewis. I can make his equally strong case for why Bowe dominates Lennox Lewis. And you know what I'm saying? And, so I don't know. I don't really want to get too deep in it. I just want to give that little piece about that. I mean, that's a fight that it makes me sick every time I think about that fight not happening. And I'll be 100% transparent. Bowe was my guy. My favorite heavyweight, probably my favorite heavyweight of all time. And I was upset about that fight not happening, not just because I felt like he would beat Lennox. I was upset about the fight happening because I feel like we were robbed of finding out who was the better fighter at that time, or at any time of their careers. Because I didn't care if Bowe went out there and lost. I cared that they didn't have the fight. I wasn't totally upset. I understood at the time what was going on with the trash can situation, why that happened. And I wasn't like, oh, he's ducking and now he's scared of him. I never thought that it was he was scared situation and the reason he done that. I knew what the motive was behind it. I just didn't agree with it, because as a boxing fan, I don't care about their money. I want to see the fight. But at the end of the day, I don't want Spence versus Crawford, Thurman versus Crawford, Thurman versus Spence or Ugas versus Thurman, Crawford, and Spence, to be fights that we talk about who we thought would have won, but the fights never happened. I can deal with these guys not getting a Pacquiao fight and us speculating who would have won, because Pacquiao's not really of this era. He's a holdover from a bygone era. And he's actually a guy who's hung around longer than expected. So all of these guys aren't going to get a Pacquiao fight, and that's understandable. But I definitely don't want to be 5-10 years from now still talking about who would have won between these other guys who are the top guys at 47. And I even understand and accept that we're probably not going to get Virgil and Boots versus some of these guys. Some of these guys are going to either retire or lead a division before they fight Virgil or Boots. And quite honestly, Boots may end up leaving the division before he gets some of these fights. He's a big boy. We just don't know. I can deal with that. But I'm not, I'm not going to be keen on the fact that these guys like Spence and Crawford and Thurman and Ugas don't mix it up with each other. Or even Porter and Porter and Crawford not fight, because Porter has already fought those other three guys. So I definitely want to see, those guys mix it up. But if they don't, that's their legacy, not mine. Just as a fan, I'm gonna feel how I feel about it. But I'll eventually get over it and move on. And I'll start paying attention to the guys that I feel like are fighting the people that I want to see them fight. So that that's my position on it. But hey, y'all, I appreciate y'all coming on here. Like I said, chopping it up with me, allowing me to, have an audience to talk this boxing to. And, I can't say when I'm going to go live again. I don't have any schedule planned or anything like this. I was just messing around with it. But definitely I'm gonna try to do this again. I'm gonna, you know, so I hate that you know, Marlo, I didn't get with Marlo and let him know. But like I said, I didn't plan on going live because I definitely had told him, you know, when I go live, I wanted him to come on and chop it up with me. You know, or at least at the very least be in the chat. But you know what I'm saying? So I'm definitely gonna do a live again sometime soon. So you know what I'm saying? Because I wanted Marlo was gonna help me with some stuff on StreamYard. Because this is my first time doing this. So there's a lot I don't know on how to navigate my way through it. I'm gonna watch some videos and try to learn, you know, how to get better at it. But for the most part, I just want to get on here and talk some boxing, man. And y'all gave me that you know what I'm saying, y'all gave me that audience, lend me y'all ear and y'all's time. And I definitely appreciate it. I'm definitely gonna do it again. And definitely gonna, like I said, I'm gonna try to get better at it. You know what I'm saying? Because you know, practice makes improvement. You know, I ain't gonna say it makes perfection, but it definitely makes improvement. And I'm gonna, you know, improve at this. And you know what I'm saying, I appreciate you guys. And you know what I'm saying, I'm gonna play a little music. And I'm gonna get on out of here. You know what I'm saying? Peace to y'all. I appreciate it, and I'll catch y'all next time.
Talking about I can't get no sleep, cause that money keep on piling. I can't put the cash on her. Oh no, we ain't doing no stalling, put no porches on my foot. Got that big creepy in the crowd. I serve anybody, money keep on coming. 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 Forgive me, but all us keep on six. Real niggas doing time in the pen. Listen, bust ass nigga, that free to keep waiting like power, strong ass bitch. Strap like that, like twin. Certain nigga ass is a brand new bitch. Body color got big F, so real like fit. Got something for these niggas, think they try to rob. Hit a nigga with the stick, call it shit to fall. Every nigga around me ain't got a job. All they do is sell dope, they try to rob. Pull up to the spot, yeah, we got the special. We go in everything, just to get the next. Checking every friend, just so we can strike. Got a nigga in the front and the back though, just to get my house. Everybody talk for me, I don't know what you're talking about. I can't get no sleep, cause that money keep on piling. I can't put the cash on her. Oh no, we ain't doing no stalling, put no porches on my wheel. Got that big creepy in the crowd. I serve anybody, money keep on coming. 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 Good that money keep on calling. I'm addicted to this shit, I'm talking cash, I want it all. Feeling low with bad cars and bad bitches. That's your new beat, not tired of tens, I probably hit it. I ain't been like folks who playing low, came in on the same shit. Stay down, out, play, really out the same brick. Jumped out the court, moment did I had to go and get it. They say on the devil, but I blame it on the way I'm living with no guilt in the field. I gotta keep it real, but facing like you probably never seen it. Did remember the shit I go through, but the cat leaving me with chill, trying to eat the pain. That shit hurt. I live that money talking, I don't know what you're talking about. I can't get no sleep, cause that money keep on piling. I can't put the cash on her. Oh no, we ain't doing no stalling, put no porches on my wheel. Got that big creepy in the crowd. I serve anybody, money keep on coming. I serve anybody, money keep on coming. I serve anybody, money keep on coming.